Good morning, everybody. This is the time and place set for the Zoning Board of Adjustment for the City of Pittsburgh hearings on June 20th, 2024. And I'm going to start the day by saying that the first case of the morning is Zone Case 82 of 2024. Oh, sorry, wrong page. Zone Case 90 of 2024 for 5524 Avondale Place. And the applicant is identified as Eric Harless. Do we have Mr. Harless? It's my understanding that this case has been continued or canceled. Mr. Harless, could you just explain, are you going to come back on Avondale Place?
Thank you. Am I coming through okay with audio?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. No, the owner has asked that we withdraw the application.
Okay. So the application has been withdrawn. So there won't be any hearing on the Avondale Place application, which means the first case we'll hear will be at 9:10. So in 9 minutes, we'll be back. Thank you for your patience. And Mr. Harless, I understand you have the next application, but we can't jump you ahead of the line, so we'll start at 9:10 on that one.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. And if Joe, we can put up the "we'll be right back" notice. We'll be back. Thank you. All right, we're back on our hearings, and the next case of the morning is Zone Case 89 of 2024 for 5205 Dearborn Street. The applicant is identified as Eric Harless. We know Mr. Harless is there.
Yes.
Mr. Harless, is there anybody else who's going to be testifying with you this morning?
I believe the owner of the property is in attendance as well. I'm not sure if she will be testifying, but she is in attendance.
We have a Janina in the list of attendees. Is that who we're looking
Correct.
for?
Janina Hooper.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm going to ask you both if you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board this morning will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And Daniel, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 89 of 2024 for 5205 Dearborn Street. The application is for the addition of a greenhouse on the roof of an existing detached garage, and they're requesting a variance from section 912.04.e, 15-foot maximum accessory structure height, and 19 feet 10 inches is proposed.
All right, Mr. Harless, we have your exhibits up, so could you explain a little bit about what you're proposing to do?
Absolutely, and thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. So the application is for an addition of an accessory greenhouse on the existing rear one-story garage. The presentation is intended to show what that's going to look like in the context of the neighborhood.
Well, it is a variance from the height. So accessory structures are limited to 15 feet in height. So part of this exercise is explaining why the additional height is necessary. It is for a different type of use, but still the height limitation is the height limitation. So be mindful of the legal standards for a variance.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The first slide are the photographs taken in evidence of the public notice placards being posted. They are date stamped for May 25th.
Sorry, I just got kicked off of Zoom. I'm reloading it. I'll put it up in just a minute.
Okay. We apologize. We'll get the exhibits back up. But so the posted notice was at the front of the house, and
Correct.
I'm assuming that the proposed use is at the rear with the garage. Does the garage in its current state comply with the setbacks and all the requirements for accessory structures?
it's an existing garage, and I'm not certain of the current setbacks. It's been an original structure there.
Well, and I guess, I mean, that is,
the house.
it is sort of.
I guess sorry.
No, and I apologize, and I'm going to just note that there is a lag from the council chambers to the outside world, I guess. But if we need to know if you're expanding a non-conforming structure, because it could be relevant with respect to the effect of the additional height on the neighboring properties.
I see. Well, the proposed greenhouse on the rooftop level is compliant with all current zoning setbacks.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, the only item that I have in front of you today is the height.
Okay. So even if the setbacks for the existing structure were non-conforming, you're saying what's being proposed for the additional structure would conform?
That's correct.
What is the height of the existing structure? So are you going from 15 to 19, or are you going from something less than 15 to 19 as proposed?
Yeah, I do have an image coming up. The existing garage is roughly 13 feet 1 inch. That's the height to the parapet from the alleyway, from a public street. And the proposed greenhouse on top of that would extend to the ridge. It's a gabled roof structured greenhouse. To the ridge is the proposed 19 foot 10 inches. The average height of the gabled roof is 18 feet.
And again, we're working on getting the exhibits back up, but when you say, would the proposed greenhouse structure extend for the entire footprint of the garage structure, or would it be on a limited portion of it?
It's on a very limited portion of it.
What are the dimensions?
The proposed greenhouse, the footprint is 8 feet by 15 feet. The 8 feet is what faces the public way. That extends 15 feet back toward into the property. That's a little bit less than 1/2 of the garage. And as I mentioned, it's set back to comply with the current requirements. It is set back from the exterior walls of the existing garage as well.
Okay. And in terms of the structure itself, and again, Daniel's working frantically here to get the exhibits up, but is it an open structure, enclosed glass structure? What could you describe the nature of the greenhouse structure that's being proposed?
Sure, absolutely. It is an enclosed glass structure. We are looking at a manufactured unit, so it would be engineered by the manufacturer. They refer to it as a cottage greenhouse, which is a fairly small but simple gabled structure. The framing materials are a heavy gauge aluminum, which we would be painting dark color, black or dark bronze, and then the panels would be tempered glass or polycarbonate panels. But it would look like a solarium, like a greenhouse that you would expect.
Well, part of the issue that we run into with extensions of accessory structures is we just want to use it for a storeroom. We don't intend to live there, and then the next thing we know, there's an additional dwelling unit on top of a garage. So is there any utilities, any water, if with a greenhouse, maybe you want to have water, but you don't have any plumbing per se. What is the electricity? What utilities are involved?
Great question. The intended use is a greenhouse. We will have water. I'll have a floor drain. There are no toilet facilities. Mm-hmm. On the greenhouse or within the garage itself. There's no kitchen. It's not intended to be a dwelling unit. There's no provisions for that. It is one open floor plan for a greenhouse.
How do you access it? Is it from the outside, from the inside?
Yeah, no, excellent question, and these are all of my points on the presentation. So from the site plan, if we get that up, you'll be able to see it. There's a spiral staircase on the exterior of the garage, but interior to the lot. So the stair is not visible from the exterior of the property. It's not visible from the street.
Okay. Is it, I mean,
If that
well,
makes sense. So the side of the garage facing the back of the house is where we have the stair. It goes up to the rooftop level and then accesses the roof and then the greenhouse.
in addition to the water, I'm assuming that it's heated in some way, or is it relying just on solar heat for, it would, I mean,
Yeah, at this point, we're not proposing heat within the facility.
okay. All right. We do want to take a look at the exhibits, but I think you've covered all the points that I have questions about.
Is it
But
possible to share my screen? I could potentially.
no, we can't, we don't have the ability to do that, so we'll get it sorted out, and we will look at the exhibits, but are there any exhibits that we haven't reviewed by testimony that you think we should review because a picture speaks 1,000 words?
Yeah, what I wanted to emphasize on the exhibits, particularly the context of the district. So it's as you mentioned, this rear garage is facing the alley. The alley is called Alhambra Way, and I provided an aerial map to illustrate this. The side of the alley that we're working on, its immediate context is much denser. You'll see garages pretty close to each other, different roof shapes, but there's immediately next to us a gabled roof garage. And then further down Alhambra Way, although not immediately adjacent to us, but across North Pacific Avenue, we have multi-story structures also facing Alhambra Way. So those are a couple things I wanted to point out. I have the map showing this, and then photographs showing views to the east and to the west across the alley, so you can see that context. And then sketches of the greenhouse on the proposed garage, also in these contextual photographs, so you get an idea of what this would actually look like.
Okay. And just because you are in a relatively dense urban neighborhood, and maybe this is a question for the property owner, is this, oh, look, we have the exhibits back,
Yay,
hooray.
Daniel.
Yay, Daniel. Have you had conversations with your immediate neighbors as to what's being proposed?
Can you hear me?
Yes, and if you could identify
wonderful.
could you identify yourself for the record, please, so the court reporter has
course.
your name?
My name is Janina Cooper. I'm the owner of 5205 Dearborn Street. I have had conversations with the neighbors towards the back, as well as to my left and my right side, about this proposition. They're all in favor. I believe we have a signed letter of the neighbor who this would most impact on the right. He's an elderly gentleman. His wife has dementia. We asked him to come to today's hearing, but he doesn't have the tech available to him. But they're all in favor of it, happy about it. I mean, I'm hoping to grow some vegetables on there. And we're hopeful it actually makes the garage a little nicer to look at. There's a fairly large tree on the right of it, as you can see. So it won't be extending far beyond that.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn to the other board members. Do you have any additional questions of the applicant?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
No questions.
Thank you. And I am going to turn to the list of participants. Is there anybody who would like to comment with respect to the application for 5205 Dearborn Street? If you could let us know by raising your hand. I am seeing no hands raised, so thank you everybody for your testimony, and we are going to close the record for this hearing, and we will issue a decision within the time permitted by the code.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, the next case of the morning is Zone Case 80 of 2024 for 2107 Sydney Street. The applicant is identified as David Light. And do we have the applicant here? Do we have somebody for 2107 Sydney Street?
Yes, can you hear me? This is David.
Okay, David, thank you.
Yes,
is
my
there-
name is David Light. I'm the architect.
Hang on.
Okay.
Is there anybody else who is going to testify with you this morning?
No.
Do you swear or affirm that the information that you will provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke, could you read the case in, please?
This is Zone Case 80 of 2024 for 2107 Sydney Street. The application is for the change of use to a single-family dwelling, and they're requesting a variance from Section 911.02. Single-unit residential is prohibited in the UI zoning district.
All right. Now, Mr. Light, can you
Sorry
explain?
about that.
No, not to worry. We have your exhibits up. Can you explain what it is that you're proposing to do?
Sure. So this is a building. The owner of the building owns OSA Global Security, which occupies the ground floor, the lower level, which is the bubbled plan on the lower left in this exhibit. Currently, the main level, which sits a few steps up from the street, is unoccupied. What the building owner would like to do is create an apartment within the structure that would serve the business, essentially. They and their executive team they reside in Florida, and when they come to interact with the business on site, they're here about 12 times a year. They would just like to have a residential component within the building. So residential.
So and again, I apologize because there is a lag on the line. So this is it looks like an old church building that was converted for an office use at some point?
Correct.
All right, and you're saying that is it the first level that doesn't have any current use? The first level is empty.
Correct.
And the office use is on the upper floors of the structure?
The office use is on the lower level. And then the large plan on the right of this drawing, where I'm pointing to an X-off space that's hatched in gray, that is the area that they would like to convert to a residence, which is not an approved use or accessory use in a UI urban industrial lot, which is what this is zoned.
We get that because that's why you're here.
Sure.
But what I'm getting at is that the use itself, the structure itself is a unique one within the zoning district. It already has some use, but you're proposing only one residential unit, and it appears that there's a parking available for that use on site.
Sure. If we could look at the survey, I'll show you. The building owner owns the adjacent lot, which has 7 spaces. Based on the size, the office is required to have 4. So we have an excess of 3, one which would be dedicated to the new residential use, which gives us 2 more than required.
Okay. And can you give us a little idea, because even though this is designated as UI, there are a number of uses going on in the south side. So could you give us a little bit of the context of this part of Sydney Street and the different uses?
Well, there is an industrial building across the South 20th Street on the opposite corner, but the 2100 block itself is all residences, single-family residences, aside from this building, which has the UI zoning. And then across the street, again, all residences across Sydney Street in the 2100 block.
You don't have among your exhibits and we can look this up because it's the Pittsburgh zoning map, but you don't have anything that depicts how this UI district is sort of tucked in among residential districts?
No, I don't have that, unfortunately, as part of my exhibits.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, the zoning map is the zoning map, but we'll take a look at that.
Okay. Okay.
Are there other items in your presentation that you want to bring to our attention?
Well, we had a pre-application meeting, and city planning wanted us to update the certificate of occupancy for the business. It had been assigned to holistic therapy, which is no longer in this building. So we've successfully gone through that process and just received an updated certificate. So I wanted to point that out. We did present to the Southside Community Council, and there was very little in comment from them on this proposal. Sheet A2, Daniel, just if you're interested, next, yeah, correct. So that's the layout of the apartment.
As proposed. Okay.
As proposed. And then I did send along separately the poster that we received and hung up on May 24th. But that was in a separate email. I don't see it here. That was my error not to send it all in one email.
That's fine. We
Okay.
will take note of the posted notice as well.
Okay.
I'm going to turn to the other board members. Any other questions?
No additional questions.
No questions.
All right. And is there anybody who is appearing virtually who would like to comment with respect to the application for 2107 Sydney Street? If you could raise your hand and let us know. I am not seeing any other hands raised, so we are going to close this hearing, accept the exhibits as part of the record, and move on to the next case. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
All right. The next case of the morning is Zone Case 83 for 591 Dorchester Avenue.
Good morning.
The applicant is Jessica Livingston. And Ms. Livingston, are you testifying on your own this morning, or are there others who are going to testify with you?
It's just me.
And do you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Shepke, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 83 of 2024 for 591 Dorchester Avenue. The application is for the enclosure of an existing front porch, and they're requesting a variance from section 903.03.A.2. A 30-foot front setback is required and 24 feet is requested.
All right, Ms. Livingston, we have your materials up, so could you explain a little bit about your property and where's the porch?
Sure. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? So this is a view of our property, and as you can see, what's highlighted in blue is our front porch. It's our existing front porch, which is open, and our intention is to close it in. The variance is that the requirement is you have to have a 30 feet setback.
We know that part. That's why we're here. Okay.
Okay.
So
we're requesting approval for a 6-foot difference, and if you go to the next slide, it talks about what the actual enclosure would look like. So we're turning it into a new entryway for our home.
Excuse me, Ms. Livingston, I don't mean to get you off script, but do you have a photo of the front of your house so we can see the porch in context? Because I think that's most helpful to us. Okay.
Yeah.
So
here's-
is the intent to enclose the entirety of it or to leave a portion of it open?
No, it would be to enclose the entirety of it, but have multiple windows.
Do you have any intent to extend a new porch into the setback from where the enclosure area would be?
No, there is no change to the existing accessory. It would just simply be enclosing it.
Okay, so, and the access to that area would continue to be from that side set of stairs? Is that?
That is correct.
Okay. And you're not proposing to add an additional story on top of that? It would just be the enclosure of the porch area?
Nope, it would just be enclosure of the porch area.
Okay. And do you have, do you have any photos that show us the context of the neighborhood? Are there other houses in the immediate vicinity that don't fully comply with that 30-foot front setback requirement?
So most of the small additions on our street are in the back or the side of the house. If you go back to the picture before, it shows our block. So, that is our neighbor to the left. And then as you can see, our neighbor to the right is actually farther back from the trees. We did speak with all of our neighbors. Unfortunately, again, one of our neighbors does not have access to Zoom. They were happy to attend. They are all comfortable. We spoke with the neighbors across the street as well. We're very active in our neighborhood. We actually run the block parties, so they were all aware that we were hoping to do and apply for this to begin with. None of them had issue with it.
It's the board that has to issue the approval, and we appreciate reaching out to the neighbors. And you said that the other parcels have more of a rear access and the ability to have additions at the rear. Are there conditions of your parcel that prevent any expansion at the rear?
We don't really have direct access to our back, and we wanted to, the intention of closing in the porch was to ensure we had a mudroom at our entryway. We have 2 kids under 2, and we're just outgrowing our home, and we wanted to, have a way to stay in our home. We love our neighborhood at a most effective cost and, most effective use of the space that we already have. And it was a 6-foot discrepancy, which we are requesting approval for.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. I'm just trying to understand the full context. And when you say that there's no access to the rear, you have the integral garage with a driveway from the front, but is there there's no way, or they commonly referred to as an alley, there's nothing like that in the rear?
No, if you go to the second slide that I have, that's the property line.
There we go.
If you look to the left,
Okay.
we have 1 house, but on the other side, we have 4 houses directly up against our property line on the right.
So just so we understand, so the parcel to the left of you fronts onto Dorchester, but there are 4 parcels to the right side. What are those parcels fronting on?
Midland, and they're all residential homes, our neighbors, yeah.
What is the name of the street? Sorry.
Midland.
Okay, thank you. It just, again, I'm just trying to understand context, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem, thank you.
And you said, and there is no way at the rear. Okay.
Yeah, we would require, if we needed to get any machinery or anything in, we would require approval from our neighbors, which is something we could do, but at this point, we didn't want to add anything into the back. We have a deck and a garden, and it just doesn't make sense for our entryway from a mudroom perspective to be in the back of the house from an extra space perspective. Most of our neighbors who have put additions on, again, for extra space, is not necessarily using it as an entryway. It was an approved extra space in their extra living space, which is not what our intention is. We want to have a 3 seasons mudroom for our kiddos' book bags and shoes.
I don't have any other questions. The other board members, any questions for the applicant here?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
All
No
right.
questions.
Okay, I'm going to turn to our list of participants. Do we have anybody with a hand raised? This is the application for 591 Dorchester Avenue. Does anybody have any comment or concern that they want to bring to the board's attention with respect to 591 Dorchester Avenue? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Livingston, and thank you for your well-prepared submission, exhibits. We'll accept the exhibits as part of the record, and we will issue a decision within the time permitted under the code.
Thank you. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thank you. Right. The next case of the morning is zone case 80. Oh, wait, I beg your pardon. The next case is scheduled for 9:40 and it's 9:37. So we are going to pause for 3 minutes and we'll be right back with you. So the next case of the morning is zone case 86 of 2024 for 438 North Fairmont Street. The applicant is identified as Julie Collins, but we had somebody from City of Bridges, is that correct? Who's here on behalf of the applicant? If you could unmute and identify yourself.
Yes. Hi, my name is Julie Nigro, formerly Collins. Since this zoning application was submitted, I got married and my last name has changed. So currently Julie Nigro, N-I-G-R-O, on behalf of City of Bridges Community Land Trust. Thank you.
And Ms. Nigro, are you the only one testifying on this application this morning?
Yes.
And do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Daniel, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 86 of 2024 for 438 North Fairmont Street. The application is for the construction of a second-floor deck on the rear of a structure, and they're requesting a variance from section 925.06.a.14. A 5-foot interior side setback is required, and less is proposed.
All right. Ms. Nigro, we'll put up your exhibits. Can you explain what is being proposed for this?
Sure. So this is a property located in Garfield. It is a 2-unit duplex that is being renovated by City of Bridges, CLT. The notice was posted May 29th. If you can go to the next slide, this is an old picture of the property. It was acquired by the community group for renovation into affordable housing, which is what we're currently doing. If you can go to the next slide, there was an existing deck on the rear of the property, a 2-story deck. It was in very poor shape. We did get a structural report done. You can tell from this picture too, there was rotting wood, the footers weren't properly set and they were failing. So we are proposing demolishing the existing deck to build a new deck. You can advance a couple slides.
Can I ask you a question? So the request is for a 5-foot interior side setback. Is what is being requested for both levels of the deck? And are you proposing to reconstruct the deck in the same footprint as depicted in these slides?
Yes. If you could advance to the next slide, I think that'll give a clearer picture. Even maybe the next slide after that is a little bit closer. So we are proposing actually decreasing the size slightly of the deck. It would have the same it would be against the side, if you're looking at the property from the front, the left side. So each unit would have access out onto a private deck for their own unit. We would not have stairs between the decks, and it would be approximately 8 feet long by 12 feet wide. Previously, it was the whole length of the building, so we are shrinking it slightly. We aren't extending it any further than it was previously. It was about 8 feet wide previously, and it was, the same height. It was a 2-story deck before, so we are proposing keeping the same height and just rebuilding it to proper standards.
And I'm a little bit confused just by the different elevations that you're showing here. where's the side that you're too close to? Is that, but, and I guess the question is the existing structure, excuse me, if you need to have a conversation, could you be outside? Thank you. Is the existing structure also non-compliant with the 5-foot interior setback?
I believe the existing was as well. And now, so if you look at the drawing on the bottom right-hand corner there that shows the elevation of the deck, that view is if you're standing in the backyard looking at the house. So the same view as the picture that I showed of the existing deck.
Okay, so but the decks as proposed wouldn't extend into the interior side setback any more than the existing structure does?
Correct.
Okay. So
it would actually be less than the existing structure.
Okay. You would have more of a setback than the existing structure.
Correct, yep.
All right. And do you have a specific number on that dimension from the side property line?
I believe it's approximately 3 feet.
Okay. All right. Are there other materials that you would like us to take a look at?
I believe those are all of the materials I have. I'm happy to provide any additional follow-up materials that you'd like to see. We do have a survey of the existing conditions. I did not include that, but I'm happy to provide any additional materials that the board would like.
Okay. And are there any questions from the other board members?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
No questions.
Okay. And do we have anybody attending or attending in person or virtually who would like to comment with respect to the application for 438 North Fairmont Street? I am not seeing any hands raised. So, Ms. Nigra, thank you very much. We'll accept the exhibits as part of the record, and we will issue a decision within the time permitted under the code.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. All right. It's one of those days. We're right on time. But, all right. So I'm going to note that the next case of the morning is Zone Case 79 of 2024 for Wycliffe Street. However, that hearing has been continued to July 18th. So we are going to put up our "We'll be back shortly" sign, and the next case that we will consider will be at 10 o'clock. So we're going to go on mute, and we'll be back at 10 o'clock for the hearing for Lytle Street. Thank you. It's 9:59, so we're back on the record, and the next case of the morning is Zone Case. Come on up here. No standing at the podium.
You can.
Up here. Yeah. No standing at the podium.
Close and personal.
Wait, yeah, you may, but just sit down and shut up. No, I'm saying the next case of the morning is Zone Case 78 of 2024 for 5007 Lytle Street. The applicant is identified as Jennifer Panian, but we have other people in the room here. So, we have a group of people in the, just because we're conducting a in-person and virtual hearing, so we have applicants in the room. I'm going to ask the group collectively if you swear or affirm that the information you provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you very much. And Mr. Shepke is going to read the case in, please.
This is case 78 of 2024 for 5007 Lytle Street. The application is for the installation of 2 wall signs, and they're requesting a variance from section 919.03.m.6a. 40-foot maximum wall sign height is permitted and 2 wall signs proposed to be mounted 62 feet 2 inches from grade.
Alrighty then. We have the exhibits that were submitted electronically, and we have those on the screen. Who's going to start on behalf of the applicant?
Good morning. My name is Tom Ayub. I am counsel for the Progress Fund. The Progress Fund is the owner of the property. It's a nonprofit. I believe the name of the applicant is the wife of the owner of the sign company that filled out the application for the proposed signage.
Well, we understand that the owner and the applicant can differ.
I just wanted to explain that to you so you knew the relationship.
We have the photos of the posted notice, so could you explain what signs are proposed?
Sure. I'm going to do a brief overview, and then my client will get into more detail, and then the representative from the sign company will provide a little explanation regarding the signage. So this project, this is the last step of a very long multi-year project to redevelop a brewery from the late 1800s located in Hazelwood. The goal of my client as a nonprofit is to create incubators to revitalize neighborhoods, and this project has this goal in mind. It is a historical building. Federally, it's been identified as a historical landmark. So what my client is trying to accomplish is really threefold. It wants to identify its business, which is a kind of a brewery incubator. You're familiar with the concept of the food galleys. This is like a beer galley. There are 3 different breweries that can occupy the property, and they have a shared area where there is a cafeteria for those at the building participating in the breweries. So they want to identify their business. They want to meet the historical requirements of the federal government regarding signage, and they don't want the signage to face the residential neighborhood. So with those 3 goals in mind, it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You identify where you can place the signs on the building, satisfy all requirements, and also the city requirements. And it really results in placing signage on 2 locations.
Well, right now, you
penthouse.
guys know what the property is and what the building is. So, and we're looking at an overview without a context. So,
I understand, but I think I'm giving you just the overall big picture, and then my client will show you the detail. And I'm almost done doing that.
Okay.
So there are 2 business identification signs that are intended to be located on the penthouse, and they will satisfy the historical requirements. They will not face a residential neighborhood. The only difference is, and the problem which causes us to be here, is they're above 40 feet. And that is why the variances are being requested. And my client can get into the detail of the signage, and he can go through the exhibits that he presented.
Can we start, where is the building? I mean, we're looking at the overview. If somebody could point out where the building is, and because Mr. Ayub noted that this is an historical building and an historical landmark, is there any evidence of historic signage on the building?
Absolutely, in the same location where we're proposing signage, and that'll also be identified for you as well.
That's a good place to start.
Good morning. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm David Cayley. I'm the president and CEO of the Progress Fund. We are a nonprofit that serve Western Pennsylvania with a large presence in the city of Pittsburgh. The property, the site, is located in the Hazelwood neighborhood before you, and also if you'd like a paper version of the presentation, I have brought it along. As you look at the site, pretty much in the middle is our site. The street on the left of the photograph is Lytle Street. The mouse is right there. If you look at the north side of this picture is the old Uber test track, now the Aurora test track, which is the southern end of Hazelwood Green, which is the 170-acre redevelopment project in Hazelwood. On the far right of the photograph, that yellow area is 2nd Avenue, which is the commercial district of Hazelwood.
Got the library, we got La Gourmandine.
And you see, you got the library, and Tecumseh Street runs along the northern side of the library and then crosses the railroad track. And our property adjoins both Tecumseh and Lytle. So we are just across the tracks from the Carnegie Library, the U.S. Postal Office, and the La Gourmandine French Bakery. That's the area. And our property is completely within the boundaries of the city-designated neighborhood business district of Hazelwood.
Well, it's in a general industrial district.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so, I mean, I understand that you're saying that it's a business corridor, but technically it's in a GI district.
Correct, but
Okay.
the neighborhood, URA's neighborhood commercial district also includes our site.
Got it, okay.
Okay. If you would, the next. This
There
is
we
the
go.
building when we acquired it in 2017. You can skip to the next. Also, the rear of the building, completely very deteriorated, pretty much abandoned except for one use.
Please note the top.
Can I?
Sure.
We'll get to the top, but how many stories, what's the height, and do you have an idea of when it was originally constructed?
Yeah, the building was completed in 2 phases. 1905 was the completion of the first, which on this picture you can see the middle section, which is higher. Above that protruding is the penthouse, we call it, that has that LACO, L-A-C-O, the sign from the prior owner. And the part to the left, all built in 1905. In 1922, the section to the right, where the windows are a little bit askew, that was an additional section built.
Okay. And I'm seeing the area for the LACO signage, and that looks like it's wall-painted signage
Yes.
on a...
We call it
is
the
that
penthouse.
the penthouse?
Yes,
Okay.
we call it the penthouse. It's set back from both this wall, which is the eastern wall facing 2nd Avenue,
Okay.
and from the north wall, which faces over to the Hazelwood Green site.
And just to
Sure.
carry on, it's wall-painted signage, which now isn't permitted in the city, but it exists as a non-conforming aspect of some signage. But I think you explained the different construction, but what is the full height to the penthouse?
So later in the presentation, pardon me, the height to the top of the penthouse is 66 feet 10 inches, and that's later in the presentation.
Great, thank you.
And to answer the question, by code, this is a 3-story building. The penthouse is actually a mezzanine. It's rather
Because
small.
it's not the full
It's
extent of
very-
the building.
It's very small compared to the whole footprint. Next slide, if you would, Daniel. This was the original company, Hazelwood Famous Brewery. It did very well until Prohibition put it out of business, and the business became many other uses till we acquired the property. If you go to the next one. This is a view now from the east looking to the west. If you see a kind of concrete area in the middle, that is now the beer garden parking area. And the building is to its beyond us from that concrete area. Lytle Street now is going right and left and dead ends where the Hazelwood Green site is. Tecumseh is the one that goes north and south on this picture. The reason I point out is if you can look at either the printout I gave you or Daniel might zoom in if possible, you can see the penthouse right where he's showing it. You can see how it's receded both on the north wall and on the east wall. It's set back.
And it's a limited, like you said, it's a limited portion of the footprint of the entire
Yes.
building. Got it, okay.
So if you scan back, the Progress Fund over time acquired 7 parcels of property, including the Hazelwood Brewery, the green building at the bottom, the green shed. Also, you see a parking area. Two of the sites were granted to the Progress Fund here in this room by the City Council several years ago as part of the reuse program.
And I appreciate the full history of this, but we're here about the signage. So
Okay.
if we could focus on the signage issues,
Sure.
that would be really helpful. Thank
So
you.
the next slide. Sorry, just this was during construction, and go to the next one. In the completed project. Where this picture is important is that you can see the penthouse from the front of the building and see how the penthouse is receded back. So this is where we run into the historic preservation restrictions, where we are not allowed to put any sign on the front of the building because it's the historic facade, nor the north wall, which is the one on the left where you see a fire escape. That was the only thing we were allowed to put on there because of code and needing to evacuate people from the building. So sacrosanct, these two sides. The next one, if you would, Daniel. The rear of the building, we were allowed to do more to the rear of the building. If you go to the next one, this is the completed project in the beer garden, just for reference sake. If you go to the next, occupancy permit 2, we got an occupancy permit for the whole building and the outside. And then the next one, okay, there's
Some historical signage.
2.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
and that, like I said, I really would like to focus in on the signage.
Yeah.
Fascinating project, but let's
Okay.
stick with the
So
signage.
this is just the old historic signage. The next one, and that's the painted sign we talked about when we purchased the property. Go to the next, if you would. So this is where you wanted to get to. This is the signage that we would like. The 3 words are Hazelwood Brew House, which harkens back to the original use of the building. It would appear on 2 sides, on the left where the painted sign was, and to the right. Hard to read, but the porch that you see, or the patio, is 17 feet 8 inches, and it's set back 3 feet from the edge, so the wall of the penthouse is 20 feet back from the north wall, and therefore cannot be seen from Lytle Street, which is the requirement by the Secretary of Interior Standards for Historic Preservation. This property is listed on the National Register. The actual reason that our fence there, our security fence, is 3 feet away from the north wall is the National Park Service required us to set back.
And again,
the
we're
line.
going to focus in on
Yeah.
the
So
signage itself. And so
That was just to show the extremeness of what we're being forced to do.
So, and I appreciate that, but the proposed signage, because you're making use of the penthouse within the interior of the existing structure, the height of the penthouse itself is the height that you're proposing
I
for
think-
mounting from grade.
And I think the next one
Okay.
gives you what you're looking for. Here are the dimensions with the sign on the penthouse.
And that the signage that you're proposing is more limited than the LACO sign that was apparent in the
Yes.
other
Yes.
drawings. And the location that you are proposing for this signage is appropriate in the context of the historic nature of the building.
Yes.
And there's no other location on that facade where you could reasonably mount signage without interfering with the historic nature of the building. Is that correct?
That's
Correct.
absolutely correct.
If you need to have a conversation, please take it outside, because we have virtual and in-person hearings going on. Thank
the
you.
next-
And just to continue that same thought, and you can't put it on the other 2 facades because of those facing residential neighborhoods, and the desire is not to do that.
Okay.
So this faces both other industrial land and over to the commercial district of Second Avenue. Matter of fact, this would overlook the new, if it's built, Seattle, Seattle,
Let's
I
not
used
go
to
there.
live there. The Steelers stadium is there.
Okay.
Sorry, too many years in
You
Seattle.
could lose
Well,
a
let's
zoning
not,
area.
yeah, it's like,
Comment
boy,
like
I
that.
tell you
Sorry,
what.
too many years. I came back to Pittsburgh. So you can see the sign there along the penthouse. Again, that's set back 20 feet from the north wall.
And the purpose, the purpose of the signage is to identify the use and the building in the context of the surrounding area.
Yes,
Yes.
which doesn't stick out. It's an old brick building, and it's hard to see. The next slide, if you would. Again, this was the context. You can see this was one of the submittals.
The site
which
plan.
shows- Site plan. And the next one, if you would. It is single letters on a tray. It's not a big box. So there's basically what you'd see is the white letters, not the box behind. That's just to run the electric.
And just, I'm going to ask, maybe this is appropriate for the sign person, but by proposing this type of signage, you are coming in more close conformity with the requirement of no painted wall signage. So you're not going to have any more painted wall signage. This is the only signage that's being proposed, so you're actually getting closer to what the code allows by
Correct.
eliminating the wall
Yes.
signage. Okay.
Yeah, if you're looking at it from a non-conformity being modified to a more conforming non-conformity.
That was my question. Okay.
And the sign gentleman here can talk about the attributes of the signage.
I think we understand. I mean, we have the technical
Okay.
aspects of that.
And the lumens are done very limited,
I guess
diminished impact.
But one question would be, is the intent to have the signage illuminated at all times or only when the business is in operation?
It's an open sign, so it's, last call, it gets shut off.
Okay.
Go away.
Like a gas station.
Yes,
It's like-
exactly. We're
it's not
turning
a-
the lights off.
Okay.
You're not welcome.
Okay.
What do we have? And I think the next one, Daniel, if you would, was just to show compliance with the posting.
This is the last slide.
Oh, okay. I thought I had it on.
I mean, we will.
That was the first one.
We'll take note of the posted notice. Any other questions from the board members?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
No
And
questions.
Any is there anybody attending who would like to comment with respect to the application for Lytle Street in Hazelwood? And is this something that was reviewed with the Hazelwood Community Group? Or the whole project has been continuously?
Yes, the Progress Fund was a member of the Hazelwood Coalition. Barbara Warwick is aware of it. The city supported us with the property acquisitions. We've had no pushback at any zoning meetings whatsoever on the project.
Work collaboratively with HI.
And yes, Sonia is now on our board of directors of the Progress Fund. She was just put on this last month. And the community is excited. The other thing about the project is within the Hazelwood Neighborhood Plan, which was adopted by the Comprehensive Plan of the City of Pittsburgh, they specifically spelled out that the population wants gathering places, including breweries and pubs.
Again, we're not on the use, we're just on the signage.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
right,
no,
but
no, I
That
just-
shows
I do
the
just-
cooperative effort with
Yeah.
the community and to
Yeah.
comply with the desires of the plan.
Where,
You would know about it if there were concerns about signage.
oh, okay, yeah.
And the other, it's the historic aspect of it as well. So we're going to accept the exhibits as part of the record, and seeing no other comments, we will accept the exhibits and testimony, and thank you all for being here this morning.
Have
right.
a good day.
Thank you very
for
much.
being here, Mr. Yu.
Thank you. I have a narrative that I thought
Okay.
was part of his exhibits. so you
We'll
can
we'll
add
accept that
those
as part
well.
of the, and were you glad that Joel Aronson wasn't here for you?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Have a great day.
All right. So, the next case of the morning is Zone Case 81 of 2024 for 7511 Thomas Boulevard. The applicant is identified as Mark Tritt. Do we have Mr. Tritt or somebody else?
One moment, Madam Chair. Are you looking because you were hoping for a different case?
So we're going in order, and I actually thank you for bringing this up. If you're here for the case at 10:20, that case has been withdrawn for now. Mr. Aronson was here earlier, and we let him know that the application has been withdrawn for now. So it might be reposted, but we don't have a time scheduled for that hearing. So for anybody online and anybody who is here in person, who's here for the 5850 Forward Avenue case, come back and see us another time, but we don't have it'll be a new application. All right?
Have a good day.
Thank you for not waiting through the next hearing.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, because they were looking
Yep.
confused.
Yep. It's like, well, all right, so we're going to go back to 7511 Thomas Boulevard. Do we have the applicant for that case?
Yes, we do. Good morning.
And who's speaking?
Hi, my name is Ray Rapon. I'm with the sign company that is presenting this variance application.
And is there anybody else who is testifying with you this morning, Mr. Rakan?
No, there is not.
Okay. And do you swear or affirm that the information that you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Daniel, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 81 of 2024 for 7511 Thomas Boulevard. The application is for the installation of one 280 square foot wall sign and one 65 square foot canopy sign for Fresh International Market. They're requesting a variance from section 919.03.m.6a. 80 square foot maximum wall sign is permitted and 280 square feet is requested. And variances from section 919.03.m.6.c. Canopy signs shall not project above the canopy, and an 8-inch maximum canopy sign letter height is allowed and 37 inches is proposed.
All right, Mr. Rakan, remember this is a variance standard and you are asking for a sign that is 3.5 times the size that's permitted, with letters that are also in almost 4 times, more than 4 times the size permitted. So we have your exhibits up, but explain your basis for requesting those variances.
Okay, thank you very much. This first sheet here is a plan view of the building, identifying the location of the 2 signs that we are proposing, the wall sign and the canopy sign. Go to next slide, Mr. Shupke. This is a map view showing North Braddock Boulevard and Thomas Boulevard. This particular building is in the Rockwell Park development. And I think it's important to note, also on this view, I think it's important to note the parking lot, which you can see there on the right of the building as it's identified and behind the building as it's identified. Next slide, please. The top view is what we are proposing. The bottom view is what we are allowed by code. The top view, I think it's important to note that we are both proposing Chinese characters and English characters. The intent of Fresh International Market has a very large Asian following, as well as clearly English speaking as well. And so having both the Chinese characters and the English characters were important to the client, and as such it is extending the size of the sign much larger. If you look at just the English, it's 204 square feet, which again is larger than the variance allows.
Well,
I
guess it's akin to having a logo. I mean, to have symbols in addition to text or English text, but again, it's the applicant's burden to demonstrate why what is being proposed is the minimum that would afford relief, not the minimum that the applicant would prefer. So
Understood.
I mean, I'm looking at the permitted by code and thinking that doesn't look so bad. So what's the basis for being as big as what you're proposing?
Yes, ma'am. If you could forward on to slide number 6, actually. This slide here shows the intersection of North Braddock Avenue and Thomas Boulevard. As I mentioned before, this is in the Rockwell Park development. Rockwell Park having been developed into a more pedestrian-friendly development with coffee shops and offices and such. The other thing that's important to note of this particular view is that this building sits inside of what I would kind of point as a building canyon. On all three sides of the building are larger, taller buildings, and so you can only view this building, you can only see this building as you approach it from North Braddock Avenue and Thomas Boulevard. Any other direction you would come to this building would be blocked by larger buildings surrounding it. If you look on the top left-hand side, you can see the size to scale from the North Braddock Avenue and Thomas Boulevard intersection on the left-hand side. Even at this distance, and it's a little fuzzy on the screen, but even at this distance, it's hard to read Fresh International Market or really anything on that building. On the right-hand side, if he scrolls right, you will see what we would be allowed if per code. So it's almost illegible if you could even make it out at all. Not to mention that the trees and all the other parked vehicles and such would block this intersection. I think it's also very important to note that the intersection at Thomas Boulevard and North Braddock Avenue does not have a stop sign on North Braddock Avenue. The closest light or stop sign is a block or two to the south. And so this is the main thoroughfare to which anyone going to this development in Fresh International Market, this is the main intersection in which they're going to be traveling. If you also zoom out, Mr. Shupke, on the bottom map there, you'll note obviously the red dot is where the photo is taken from, and the red triangle is kind of the view. The blue line is indicating the pedestrian crossing, the high travel pedestrian crossing, taking you from the primary parking lot for the entirety of Rockwell Park in front of Fresh International Market, across that blue line, which is now Thomas Boulevard, into the other communal areas of Rockwell Park. So I think it's important to note that pedestrian crossing. If you can go back a slide, Mr. Shupke, this is slide 5. We're now coming closer to the building as we go down Thomas Boulevard. And if you make note there, right on the right-hand side, past this SUV that's parked there, is the entrance, the vehicular entrance into that parking lot. And so as we're progressing west on Thomas Boulevard, only now with the larger proposed size, which we feel, getting to the point, we feel is the smallest that we could make it, that it could still be legible from vehicular traffic. Only now do you really start to make it out as you zoom in as to what it says. Again, pointing out that both the Chinese characters and the English characters are important because they both have to convey what this building is. And so some of the clients going there, the Chinese characters are all they're going to be able to make out versus the English characters. If you go back one more slide, Mr. Shupke. This is the view right at that intersection, or I should say at the entrance to the parking area. So on the left-hand side is what we're proposing, again, what we feel is the smallest but still legible. On the right-hand side is what we're allowed per code to scale. It could be argued that it's legible at that point, but at that point you are right on top of the turn that you're supposed to be making coming into the parking lot.
Is there, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. Is there any other, I'm looking at the large building behind this structure, what would stop them from asking for signage of comparable size on that building? Is there any other comparably sized signage in the area?
There's not any that I'm aware of that are comparable size. On top of the building behind you, there's 3M Mobile, I think it is, on the very top of it. But I don't know if that's larger than what's allowed by code. We didn't manufacture that sign. Okay. And within the Rockwell Park, there are not other larger signs on top of the buildings, but there's also not large grocery stores within Rockwell Park.
Well, appreciating, I mean, again, everybody wants their use to be the most visible. I mean, we see a number of different cases of we want our sign to be bigger than anybody's so that we're getting the advertising value from it too. So we're mindful of that. I mean, I understand your position about points of access, traffic, and pedestrian visibility, but again, we have to be mindful of is this the minimum variance that would afford relief, or is it just the minimum that you want? So.
Understood. I think it's important, again, Fresh International Market being the name of the company, they can't just use Fresh Market. They have to keep the international portion part of it. So they're obviously, being burdened by just their name in the sense that there are a lot of letters, and they're a large group of them. And so in order for it to be large enough to actually read and to make out, and again, we feel it's important that people be looking up as they're driving, not down at their phones or navigation to try and come here. And I would point out that we feel this is a destination.
So I think we appreciate your argument, but this is one of the signs that's being proposed. The second is a canopy sign that, for I guess similar reasons, has proposed letter heights that are 4 times what's permitted. Where's the proposed canopy sign?
If we slide to the next sheet, Mr. Shupke, please. One more. Actually, we're going to go to 7. Sheet 7. Okay. This is now, you're on North Thomas Boulevard, or Thomas Boulevard, I should say, looking directly at the building. On the right-hand side is the Fresh International Market with both English and Chinese characters on the canopy. On the bottom portion of that is what we are allowed per code, with the maximum height being 8 inches. If we go to the next slide, please. This is a view, again, you can see it right at that pedestrian crossing, the left-hand side being what we are proposing, the right-hand side being what we are allowed. Again, I think it's important to note that the progression of these next slides are as if you were in a car going to that entrance. So at this point, if you have come down Thomas Boulevard, the only other way to access this site, you will be blocked 100% by buildings and this building until you turn this corner, at which time you would have this view. The next slide, please, is you are progressing down Thomas Boulevard, again, approaching the intersection to drive into this parking lot. Left-hand side is what we're proposing, right-hand side is what is allowed. Again, not legible, the right-hand side. And again, we're stressing that we feel this is, although very large in comparison to what we're allowed, is reasonable in its size, and that it's the smallest legible from the street. If you continue to the next slide, please. This would be the view. Again, it's a little bit further back because we're on across the street in this view, but this would be the view as you go to turn into the parking lot on that canopy.
And that canopy is it's a canopy because it's extending out over the sidewalk?
Yeah, I guess it would be defined as a canopy because it extends out over the sidewalk. It's pre-existing.
That was my question, of whether it was pre-existing and it's part of the structure of the building.
Yeah, it's part of the existing structure, pre-existing. There's no roofing on it or anything. It's literally just exposed I-beams that are projecting off the building.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, and I think thank you for the exhibits. They're helpful for us to understand. Ms. Burton-Falk?
No additional questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Richardson?
No questions.
And do we have anybody who is attending who would like to comment with respect to this application? All right, I'm seeing none. So thank you for the exhibits, Mr. Rakan. We'll accept the exhibits and your testimony as part of the record, and we're going to close the hearing for today. And we're going to move on to the next one, which is, okay, so we've announced this a couple of times. This is zone case 82 of 2024 for 5850 Forward Avenue. It's my understanding that this application has been at least temporarily withdrawn. It's been continued, I'd say indefinitely, because we don't have a date for a new hearing. When we have a situation like this, if there is a new application or a different application or a new time to hear this application, there'll be new notice provided to everybody who might want to comment with respect to this application, but we are not going to conduct a hearing on it today. So If there are any questions, raise your hand, but otherwise we will see you all again whenever a new application for 5850 Forward Avenue is presented to the board.
Kento Mori's here. Should we? All right.
He doesn't want to say anything. It's like, I've said it all. All right, moving on. The next case, that helps us catch up a little bit. The next case of the morning is Zone Case 85 of 2024 for 113 Natchez Street. The applicant is Gary Hall, and we have Mr. Hall. Is that Mr. Hall in the room? Come on up. No. No, it's like we'll have the exhibits that you emailed in, but I'm assuming that you're here on your own. Come on up. Sorry.
Yes.
And so have a seat, but we're going to ask you to swear in. And do you swear or affirm that the information you'll provide to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Shepke, could you read the case in, please?
This is case 85 of 2024 for 113 Natchez Street. The application is for the new construction of two unit residential structures, and they're requesting a variance from section 903.03.d.2. A 15-foot exterior side setback is required, 1 foot is proposed. A 5-foot interior side setback is required, 2 feet is proposed. A 15-foot rear setback is required, 13.5 feet is proposed. And 3-story maximum height is permitted, and 4 stories is proposed.
All right, so we have your materials up on the screen. Can you explain what you're proposing to do here? Okay. And just identify yourself for the record. I apologize.
Yeah,
sorry.
Gary Hall.
Thank you. And we have a court reporter. You just can't see her. She's on screen.
Okay.
She's online there.
Okay. It's for 4 units.
Well,
right?
The application we have is for the construction of two unit residential structures. So by my math, that's 4. But the issues that we are reviewing are the setback issues.
Okay.
So if you could explain, I mean, it might go to trying to fit 4 units on a parcel without complying with the setbacks, but can you explain that your position with respect to variance was being requested?
Yeah, let me see. Integral garages, subject properties located.
Well,
so,
the variances that Mr. Shepke just read in is that there is a 15-foot exterior side setback required, which would be, I guess, from the Southern Avenue side, that you're not complying, that you're not providing a full 15-foot setback on that side.
okay.
And then,
Do you want me to comment on that one?
well, it's your application. It's like you have to explain to us why you think that the variances are appropriate in the
Okay.
context of the site.
Yeah, that's consistent with the current property or structure that's on there, which has a 0% setback.
Well, we don't know that there are structures on the property, so you'll have to point us to what you want us to look at.
So Gary, I have photos at the beginning of the presentation, and then I have your elevations and I have the site plan. So if you just tell me what you want to bring up, I'll go to that page.
Yeah, the picture of the house, the current structure.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And the front, well, do you have a front one?
Is the current house, it's this white structure
Yeah.
shown? Okay.
Right.
Corner lot?
Correct. Here's a picture of the current structure. It's a
Is
zero.
that part of the materials that have been submitted?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, I couldn't upload anything else on One Stop. It was impossible to deal with. It wouldn't let me do anything after the initial application.
So, where the 2 cars are here on the sort of middle lower, the blue and the
Yeah, correct.
that would be the front,
That's it.
and that would be what you're showing here on this paper. But the photo that Daniel pointed out is the side of that.
Correct.
Okay, can we start there?
So this is the intersection of Southern and Natchez, and you're proposing units that would face Natchez?
Natchez.
Okay. So
Correct.
there's nothing currently on the green space, but you have the structure that you're showing us.
Which will be
that
demolished.
But that extends to the property line on Southern.
Correct.
Okay. I think I have that orientation. So carry on.
Okay, so the next one is, where's my thing here?
Well, you're proposing
Oh,
two sets of two. And are you're proposing to have only 2 feet in between those two sets of
It's 5
structures?
feet.
Okay.
Sorry.
So so it's 5 feet between the two.
2 and 2.
Okay. But then you're proposing a 2-foot setback on the outside from this site plan on the right-hand side. That's where you're proposing a 2-foot setback from that property line?
Right.
But there's nothing currently on that lot. So why are you, what is your basis for proposing that variance?
To fit the structures in to the lot.
Do you know whether there had previously been structures on that parcel that extended that close to that side yard? I mean, to that side property line? Had there ever been anything on that?
On my lot.
Yes.
Oh,
That went as far as you're proposing to go with a structure now?
yeah, there's a patio slab that runs right up to the,
But had there ever been a structure on that property, not just a patio slab?
not that I know of.
Okay. So what is on the lot immediately next to it that would be most affected by that limited setback?
There's a fence.
Well, is there a house? Does somebody live there? Did
No,
you talk
there's-
to the property
No, it's a
owner?
vacant property.
Okay. Is it a vacant structure or is it is it an empty lot?
Empty lot.
Okay.
Who owns that empty lot?
I know the guy, but I couldn't tell you.
Sorry, we're just making sure that the court reporter can hear you. All right, so, and then at the rear, you're proposing a reduced rear setback, but the rear of these structures would be facing the side of the property on Southern, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And again, you're proposing 4 stories where 3 stories is the maximum height permitted. Are you proposing for these structures to be within the 40-foot height limitation?
Exactly.
And
40 foot.
what is the purpose of the additional story that's being proposed?
That's the roof. So to back up from the beginning, there's a garage on the first level. So there's 4 units with 8 interior parking spaces in the garage. So there won't be any vehicles that need to be parked in the street. So that raises it up to the next height.
Okay. Is that the 4th story? It looks like they're dormer windows. Is that a full story?
No, it's a half.
Okay.
It's a loft. And then we put a balcony in up there.
All right. Are there other structures that exceed the 3-story height limitation in the general area of this property?
Yeah, there's a brand new one. Let me see. 2 houses down. I have a picture of it on my phone.
Well, we can't take your phone as part of the record, so if you want to submit something.
If you wanted to see so you can understand what I'm talking about.
If you want to submit something as part of the record, Mr. Shepke can give you his email address and you can email it in as opposed to trying to deal with one stop. But
Okay. And on Woodruff Street, there's 4 units that are exactly the same, or 3.
well, where is Woodruff Street in relation to?
That's a few blocks away. It's the exact same plan. Basically. Same height. It has the garages on the bottom level, then the living area, then the bedrooms, and then they don't have a loft, but they have windows up on the roof.
Are there other materials that you would like us to take a look at?
This is the a picture of the lot in yellow, and to the left of that, you see the 2 houses next to it.
What are you bringing to our attention?
That it's similar to, as far as variances.
Well, on the Southern Avenue side.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's 0 in the front, and it would be 4 feet between the structures.
All right.
This is directly across the street. And the one structure there is has 4 levels of apartments plus the roof. It's way above 40 feet. It was a dairy.
All right. I don't have any other questions. Do you, Ms. Burton?
No additional questions, Madam
No
Chair.
questions.
All right.
Just a request that these be emailed to Daniel.
Yeah,
for
I
the
was going
record.
to say, like, I'm going to give them to Daniel, but if there are additional things that you would like the board to consider, we will email them to Daniel. That would be helpful.
Yeah, probably the structures that are exactly like it.
Sounds good. Yeah,
In the
just
area.
send it to me by email and I'll make sure the board gets it.
All right. I'm just going to turn to our list of attendees. Is there anybody attending who would like to comment with respect to the application for 113 Natchez Street? I'm seeing no hands raised. So we're going to accept the exhibits that were submitted online and then submitted in the room as part of the record. Thank you
One
for your
last
testimony.
comment. This was approved by the zoning board in 2019.
Well, that would have been, and you're coming back because the approval expired?
Correct.
Okay.
And I applied for a
An extension,
approval.
but that was 5 years ago, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I understand the problem there.
All right, we will look at it again. All right, thank you very much for being here this morning, Mr. Hall. All right, so the last case of the morning is zone case 84 of 2024 for 435 Millwood Avenue. I am recusing on this matter. There are applicants in the room, but I am out.
All right.
Yeah, it's all yours.
This is for the previous case.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Is the entire applicant team here? Yes. All right, so this is zone case 84 of 2024. First, I'm going to swear you all in, and then we'll have Daniel read the case in. Anybody who intends to provide testimony today, please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Daniel, would you please read the case in?
This is zone case 84 of 2024 for 435 Mellwood Avenue. The application is for the new construction of a 166-unit multi-unit residential building. They're requesting a special exception pursuant to Section 904.07.c.4 to allow additional height over 60 feet, 4 stories. 142 feet, 12 stories is proposed. A special exception pursuant to Section 904.07.c.5 to allow additional FAR over 3:1. 10:1 FAR is proposed. And a special exception pursuant to Section 914.07.g.2.a to allow off-site parking.
Thank you. Okay, so we have 3 special exceptions we're considering today. We're here to talk about height, FAR, and off-site parking. So that's
technically use.
Okay.
It's a pretty, not many standards. So
Right.
4 technically.
Right. So that's what we're going to be focused on hearing from you. You have the floor.
Okay. Do you want us to provide names or?
Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourselves and then.
All right, we'll just go right through. Clifford Levine. Do you need address or no? Okay. Clifford Levine, counsel to the project.
Jonathan Hudson. I am a partner with the Hudson Companies.
Kelly Coey, Director of Development for the Hudson Companies.
Jack Williams, architect for the project.
Thank you. Who would like to begin?
I will start. So we have a slide presentation, so we'll mark this collectively as Exhibit 1, but I will also refer to the page numbers. So I'll just refer to page 1, the cover page, which shows an elevation of what the building would look like. The board may recall that a couple years ago there was a very similar building which is under construction. That's called the Julian, basically the same size, and you'll see where that's located. So it's a residential building, Melwood Avenue in North Oakland. So if you go to the page 2, that provides some of the building information. As you see, it's 10 stories. I'll turn it over to the architect for a minute just to review the calculations, but this is on page 2.
Certainly. So you can see that we have a lot size of about just over 17,000 square feet. And through the special exception, we're applying for FAR increase. We do have a slide that explains the calculation of that increase later on, but it's 164,183 square feet of an allowable 170,820. The building is 12 stories, 166 total units, and we'll be providing parking for 70% of the units at 1 space per bed, utilizing the 30% allowable reduction for protected bicycle parking.
And just briefly, I'd like to have both Jonathan and Kelly just speak about the communications with the city and with the neighborhood groups.
Sure, absolutely. Just covering a little bit more on this page, as Jack just went through, we do fall into the inclusionary affordable overlay that was newly adopted. We'll be providing 10% of the units at the affordable rates as calculated within that ordinance. And we also do have 56 protected bicycle spaces that will be provided at the property as well. Just clarifying, we will be providing 117 parking spaces, and that's 70% on the per unit basis. We've worked really well with city departments and individuals within those departments up until this point, and have had correspondences leading up to now as we're here working with Kevin Kunak, Corey Lehman, and Mary Ann from the city planning department. And we've also worked with Domi throughout this process as well. As you'll see here later, all of the information with the site plans has been worked through with those various city departments and staff members within them. I'll allow Kelly to talk a little bit about our neighborhood outreach to date.
Yeah, so we have reached out to all the surrounding neighbors within around the development, and that includes the public groups, Polish Hill, Bloomfield Development Corp., and OPDC. We did hold our dam meeting back in May, and we haven't had any opposition. We've had conversations with OPDC and Polish Hill Group. We basically, they didn't have any questions at this time, but they asked us to keep them up to date of the project as it moves forward. And when we reached out to the Bloomfield Development Corp., we did not get a response. The surrounding neighborhoods, companies we've reached out to, I don't know if you care for me to list them all, but we reached out to roughly 10 different neighbors surrounding the neighborhood, had positive responses.
Let's go to page 3, just to give you a visualization. This is North Oakland, right where basically where Baum and Craig Street meet. It's Melwood's like a street over. So again, that's the site right adjacent to the previous project the board considered. If you look at page 4, it's depicted in orange is that location, and immediately below that on this page 4, you can see where the existing project is being constructed. Right across the street is the parking. This is one of those rare events that we're building a building, and there's actually an existing building with over 100 parking spots. So they've acquired both and are going to use that, and that's one of the special exceptions is off-street parking, but it's literally across the street. Jonathan, do you want to describe?
Yeah, sure. Moving to page 5, we really just wanted to show existing conditions from a street view perspective of the site currently. So as you'll see here, it is technically today comprised of 3 parcels that of course will be consolidated as we keep moving through the process of permits and approvals. 435 Melwood is a 2-story building as it sits today, commercial garage on the first floor with 1 residential apartment unit on the second floor. There's a parking lot between the 2 properties, and then 445 Melwood is currently a 1-store commercial use, relatively nondescript. It's currently used as storage.
And could we jump to page 9 for 1 second? I'm sorry, I think it's easier. Page 9. This is the depiction across the street of the garage. And Jonathan, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just a little bit of background here. As Cliff mentioned just a moment ago, we do have the opportunity to utilize a currently existing parking structure. There is a 2-story parking structure at the building across the street at 450 Melwood. We are also under contract to purchase that property and would intend to utilize those spaces for parking at the 435 Melwood project here. Just for clarity, the 166 unit property that we're talking about today. So as you will see here, the picture on the left-hand side of the screen, behind the building there, you might be able to see a pin that says 450 Melwood. It's a red pin there. That's the upper level parking garage. You'll see at the top right hand of the page photo, that is the entrance to the upper parking structure. And as you will see in the photo in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a separate entrance on the other side of the building that goes to the lower level garage. The topography on that side of Melwood is actually a hill, so it's naturally set up topography-wise, for this 2-level parking garage that was built, I believe, sometime around 15 to 20 years ago.
And UPMC employed approximately how many people at that building?
To my knowledge, UPMC, they formally leased the building. There's a small amount of employees still there that are planning to be leaving here at the end of the year. There was roughly, I believe, 250 employees, and there was some staggered shifts. So another, great thing to note is that the use that we're proposing, being residential, is much less intense and invasive than the former use where it was, several shifts and employees coming and going different times throughout the day.
How many spaces are in that?
153 spaces are in the parking garage.
So you almost have a 1-to-1.
Right, so 117 are going to be allocated to the building across the street. That's the special exception. There'll be a remaining 36 that will then be reserved for the new residents once that building gets renovated.
Although not a part of this project, our intentions for this building associated with the parking garage is to do a residential conversion.
Okay, if we could go back to page 6. This is the zoning map. So again, this is a UI district. As you'll see, it meets the setbacks. We've just set out the various requirements. Then there are special exceptions off of that, and of course we meet the inclusionary zoning. If you go to page 7, these are the 4 special exceptions that are set out. So the first one is really in a UI use. We're allowed to have this multi-unit residential, and the condition is pretty general. It just says that all residential units may be limited to floors above the ground floor of the building when residential uses are not desirable on the ground floor, and the architect, Jack Williams, will just describe that they have office space, et cetera. The second special exception is for height. We're allowed to have 4 additional stories of height. The site shall not be within 200 feet of any property. We're going to show that we're beyond the 200-foot point, and this was exactly the issue that was in the Melwood case a couple years ago, so the board has an opinion already making that determination that we're over 200 feet. And we'll have testimony on that. Secondly, that the site shall be sufficiently separated from the property zone residential, so it won't have a detrimental impact, and we're going to show why this will not, and we'll show that mostly through photos and some testimony. Special exception for FAR adjustments. This is when at least 75% is being used for multifamily purposes. We can go to 10-to-1. We can't be within 200 feet of the property, so those are sort of redundant elements for the height, and the site will be situated so that it doesn't create a detrimental impact. So they're different special exceptions, but they're basically overlap in the testimony. And last but not least, we're going to show the special exception. There's alternative access and parking, and we're going to show that it's right across the street, so it's within 1,000 feet. It is located in the same district. It's, again, on the same street, and we will be submitting an off-site parking agreement before we get the building permit, assuming we get approval from the board. So with that, I will turn it over to the architect, Jack Williams. We're going to cover the first floor and what's there just to satisfy that one criteria of the special exception.
Certainly. So if you look at the image on page 8, the image on the left shows the existing Julian development, then the subject property at the top of that image where it says new 12-story apartment building, and then immediately south is the 450 building and its associated parking garage. And then if you look at the image on the right, the red line, the red dashed line, shows the travel distance from the front door of the Parker building to the access point of the parking garage, and that distance is 115 feet, which is below the 1,000-foot limitation for the off-site parking exception.
And then you have sort of communal uses, offices, fitness center on the first floor, and that presumably is why you've determined that residential would not be appropriate on the first floor?
That's correct. We have public amenities, or not public, amenity spaces for the residents on that first floor. So we have a fitness center, we have an event space, leasing office, lounge, bike parking, all things really more associated with the ground floor.
All right, we've already looked at number 9. Let's go to page 10. This is just a quick FAR calculation, just for the record. So again, this is, Jack, you performed this calculation?
That's correct. So this shows the gross footprint of each floor of the building. We have a slightly larger first floor that steps out in basically the 4 corners past the upper floors. That's about 14,198 square feet. And then all the floors from 2 to 12 are the same size at 13,635. And when we total those all together, we get a total gross square footage of 164,106 square feet. Again, this is under the 10 by multiplier, under the special exception, which would allow us 170,820 square feet.
Okay, thank you. And then if we look at page 11, you've identified in blue circles, 7 or 8 blue circles, and or a little more. You're depicting what?
So what we're looking to identify here are other multifamily properties in the vicinity of this project that are of a similar or taller height. So we've called out those buildings here, and just to highlight a few of them.
So just as a baseline, the Parker's going to be 114 feet high. The Julian next door is 117 feet. And so you've identified.
The Parker is going to be 142 feet.
Or 42, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a typo.
So then you have the residence in 140 feet, the Royal York 155 is higher, one on Center 170, Belfield, et cetera. So you're kind of in the middle range of the buildings you've identified.
That's correct.
Page 12 then are depictions of the buildings that are identified on page 11, correct?
That's correct.
And so it shows compatibility. Page 13, this is the look at the Julian that the board approved that's going to be next door to the right. That's the Hudson Company's project. as well as the Union Ambassador. So, again, that's right next door. Then if we go to 14, this shows the setbacks. There are 0 setbacks, and we're building to the
Correct. So,
maximum size.
yeah, we're building to the north and south, which would be sort of the left and right property lines to the property line, and both those lots have a building that runs to the property line, allowing a 0 foot setback. Because we back to a public way, the rear setback is allowed to be 0, and by right, the front setback is allowed to be 0 as well.
Page 15, this is that calculation that you have to be 200 feet from a residential area. As you see on in the gray is called the Melwood. That was the previous case that the board heard, and we undertook that calculation. And from the Melwood to the property line, where the left red line is depicted, that's the start of the residential parking district. It was that was over 200 feet, and in this case, Jack, you calculated it was 212 feet and 205 feet distance.
Correct.
So it's
You meet the
it's close, but we meet the 200 feet, and it's appropriate. Again, the buildings in that residential district are high-rise in many cases, but we know it's showing the zoning there. Aerial perspective. This will show page 16 is going to depict. If you can see a crane. You see, I don't know if you can see it. The building is put in there. There's a crane. That's the Julian being constructed. The Julian is now pretty much fully constructed in terms of its height. Yeah. So it's just they're finishing in the middle, in the interior rather. So you're going to have 2 of these buildings next to each other. Then 17, Jack, you wanted to just get depictions of views from other areas because one of the criteria is there's no detrimental impact, and I think these
particularly to views from residential properties. So as we noted on the distance plan a few pages ago, the closest residentially zoned properties in this area are along North Craig Street. So this would be taking a view from those properties, looking towards the subject property. And in the second image to the right, you can see both the Julian and the Parker, sort of the top levels, just above the Luna Lofts and the adjacent commercial buildings on North Craig.
18. Jack?
This is a before and after rendering showing the perspective building on Melwood. So on the left, you can see the existing Steel City building, the parking lot, and then the Julian in the background. And then in the right, you can see both buildings rendered along the street.
Page 19.
This is a view along Gold Way. Gold Way is really our service side entrance for the perspective building. So you can see just a little bit there in the yellow brick on the left image. That's the Steel City building. The other building is a little bit harder to make out behind the telephone pole. But this is the service side entrance with the 0 foot setback, and the trash and service entrance there is sort of that garage door in the foreground.
Then page 20, I think, gives a good perspective of the neighborhood, and we talk about residential, there's kind of a warehouse look, and then there's some high rises closer to Craig Street. Is that
correct? And what we also want to illustrate here is that we're providing public access resident drop-off deliveries along Melwood, which is consistent with all the other buildings in the area that front to Melwood. And then in the sort of cyan arrow along the back, that's where our trash pickup, our unloading and loading, all of our services, transformer entrances, electrical service and utility entrances are all really located along Gold Way, and that is consistent with both the properties that face North Craig as well as the other properties in the area that face Melwood.
Page 21, this is an elevation of what the building would look like. East elevation, correct?
Correct.
And then the west elevation is on 22. The materials, brick, 23. 24 is going to show how the access will work. 24 is a depiction right from the front, so Jack, describe that.
That's correct. So the arrows...
You got orange arrows and blue arrows.
Correct. So the orange arrows really represent resident arrival, departure, delivery, arrival, departure. The blue arrows are representing service. So as you can see with the two blue circles at the rear for trash and loading, those are at the rear of the property. The rear of the property can be accessed via Goldway off of Baum Boulevard. It could also be accessed from Melwood by going down to Denver Street and sort of going around the block and then back out to Baum Boulevard. We see most of the resident traffic as being primarily along Melwood, both because that's where the drop-off is in the front of the building. It's also where the parking is located across the street, and there's a traffic light at Baum Boulevard. So we see the vast majority of the traffic being along Melwood towards the light at Baum Boulevard.
And I just want to point out that this building, because of the parking facility on Melwood right across, people will generally stay on Melwood, we presume. The city had wanted, for the other building, had wanted access to the garage, which is on-site parking. They wanted that through Goldway. So actually, we're going to have a disbursement of the traffic flow. One building's accessing Goldway, the other is coming off of Melwood. All right, then we continue on page 25. I think you get the idea. We think there's going to be the use on Melwood. There's a traffic light there, very short distance, and basically a business district, pretty much. So shouldn't be an impact there. You'll see the garage entrance on page 26, again across the street, consistent with the use of Melwood. 27, which just shows the trash pickup on Goldway. 28 shows rideshare, which would be off of Melwood, and there's a foyer that people can enter. 29 shows the move-in, that would be off of Goldway, but there's ability to not clog up the street. The street view then, you'll see how that foyer works with Uber and pickups. Page 30, page 31, similar view, and it shows the relationship with the Julian. And last but not least, there was the letter on which, Kelly, do you want to, or Jonathan?
Sure. We did receive a letter of support from the Pittsburgh Innovation District. That's a group that's very active within Oakland, mainly focused on startup companies and other early stage companies focused in the life science ecosystem. However, one of their notable initiatives is the increasing the quality housing stock within the Oakland area, as it's a challenge that they've identified when they're attracting companies to the area. We've also, as mentioned, had our development activities with OPDC. They are not rendering a decision and are neutral with the project. We will continue to keep them involved. Although there's no letter of support currently, we're actively working with Councilman Lavelle's office as well, and his team, as well as himself personally, are aware of the project, and we intend to keep in touch with all of those parties. And unless there's anything further,
that's it.
Cliff,
I would
we
just say, I
appreciate
think
your time.
if you go back to the 4 special exceptions, we've met the proof of the objective standards.
Thank you. LaShawn, do you have any questions?
No additional questions.
Do we have anyone that wants to be heard either by way of support or opposition?
We have one hand raised from Leslie Clegg.
Okay.
Leslie, you're unmuted.
Let's hear from Ms. Clegg first.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Would you please state your name, where you reside, whether you're in support or opposition, and then you can proceed.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Clegg. I live in Polish Hill, just off Melwood Avenue. I am in opposition. I want to first state, most people in our neighborhood were not aware about this hearing, and were not able to attend 2 years ago. There was a lot of opposition to the Julian. We felt it was too big for this site, and the traffic issues, which we shared extensively with you all. There were more than 30 of us who spoke. And the opposition hasn't changed, but I just want to say, I was at the community meeting in Polish Hill the other day. People just feel like there is no point. I'm speaking because I want the zoning board to know, living over there, these little streets, and they are putting hundreds of people on these tiny, tiny streets at this edge. It is not an appropriate spot for the density they're going for. And again, I know Hudson's going to get what they want here. We're all pretty sure of that, but we feel like it's important to get on the record. We have shared traffic issues, and at the last hearing, Mr. Levine's response to that was to mock residents for their concerns, call their education into question, and all sorts of things. So this is why a lot of people are not going to testify today, but the concerns we shared 2 years ago, the traffic issues, our feeling that the scale here is inappropriate, these concerns remain, and I don't know what else to do except try to get this on the record, so when problems start, we can say, we tried to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else?
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay. Sir in the room, were you? No. Okay. All right.
Could we offer to submit proposed findings of fact?
If you'd like to, sure. How long do you need?
2 weeks.
Okay. We'll look for those in 2 weeks. We'll close the record. Our 45 days will start after we receive your proposed findings.
Very good.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're going to close that hearing.